What do you get when you combine a centipede with a red dragon, and then give it an aptitude for snow and ice? Well, the Remorhaz, of course. This clattering terror is a huge monstrosity that combines the very best parts of the aforementioned beasts to create a truly bizarre and formidable foe. Heralded by the clicking and clacking of far too many legs, the Remorhaz is clad in tough, chitinous armor plates and sports a magnificently vibrant frill that it can flare out to intimidate all but the most battle-hardened foes. These creepy crawlers are armed with rows of steak knife teeth, and their very aura spells doom for those who tread too near. The Remorhaz are native to mountains, tundras, and other snowbound environments, burying themselves under the silky snowdrifts and hunkering down while they await the arrival of their next meal.
Measuring up to around 20 feet in length and weighing around 10,000 pounds, or 4,500 kilograms,
these guys are sizable and use their bulk as part of their combat and hunting strategies, overpowering smaller creatures with relative ease. The Remorhaz enjoys chowing down on creatures such as elk, bears, smaller Remorhaz, and anything else they can clamp their slavering jaws around. And that does of course include adventurers should they happen to stray too close. Which brings us nicely onto the stat block. With an AC of 17 and an average hit point pool of 195, the Remorhaz is not to be trifled with,
and it backs these defenses with a pretty solid stat block, with the primary statistics being strength and constitution, with some reliance on dexterity and wisdom, and of course dumping intelligence and charisma. Now this is pretty much what you would expect from a creature such as the Remorhaz, which of course in this stat block is showcasing its bestial nature. And while the Remorhaz may not have the brain power to think its way out of situations and problems, it more than makes up for this in its bulkiness, using its strength and power to batter its way through any obstacle that stands in front of it. This greatly reduces its need for critical thinking, and with its around average wisdom score, it would be safe to assume that this creature is well aware of its surroundings and is able to use them as any hunting creature would, to its advantage. And with all that said, it is safe to assume that the stat block firmly sets the Remorhaz up as a bulky ambush predator.
And when it comes to fighting, the Remorhaz is no pushover, and will engage most foes head-on, utilizing its bite attack in an attempt to swallow any creature of size medium or smaller. It'll start off this process by attempting to grapple a creature in its punishing jaws, and unlike some other creatures, the Remorhaz is not picky, and is likely to just attack the creature closest to it at the time. Now, upon getting chomped, you'll notice an unusual sensation. Aside from the obviously expected piercing feeling that comes from being bitten by rows of needle-sharp carnivorous teeth, you'll be greeted by the creeping heat of an intense burning. This is because the Remorhaz's body has adapted to become a natural furnace, and it utilizes its incredible internal temperatures as both a weapon and survival mechanism. This heat allows the Remorhaz to withstand the coldest known conditions, and doubles up quite handily as its very own built-in personal barbecue. It can turn its internal forge on and off at will, often reducing the output to 0 while buried under snow so as not to disturb its frosty surroundings. While this stuff is all quite wonderful for the Remorhaz, it is of course terrible news for anything it happens to be fighting, as the chances are that tundra goers will be prepared for dealing with frigid, icy conditions and damage types, not the infernal heat that the Remorhaz has access to. And it does get better, as this heat is not only for internal use. As mentioned before, the Remorhaz's body is covered in a series of chitinous plates that are incredibly efficient at mitigating damage from both hot and cold temperatures, to such an extent that the Remorhaz has full immunity against both fire and cold damage. On top of this, the Remorhaz can channel its internal heat through its scales, and in an instant they become magmic, causing creatures that hit or touch it while within 5 feet to take 10 or 3d6 fire damage per hit. This is one of those abilities that I personally feel could be expanded upon, especially given that the Remorhaz lives in an Arctic environment. There is a part of its flavor text found in the basic rules that reads as follows: "From beneath the snow and ice bursts a Remorhaz in a cloud of steam, its body pulsing with internal fire." But this part is then never touched on again as part of its stat block or ability set. This is just one monster out of many that suffers from having some of its more dynamic behaviours forgotten about. And for that reason, I like to give it the following ability to bulk out its block. I call the ability Erupting Mist, and the Remorhaz uses its action to burrow deep into the snow and can move up to 40 feet through the snow with its burrow as if using the dash action. At the start of its next turn, the Remorhaz can use a bonus action to emerge. Any creatures within 20 feet of the emerging Remorhaz must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw, or take 3d6 bludgeoning damage, or half as much on a success, and become blinded until the end of their next turn. This ability works with the pre-established flavor text to give the Remorhaz its own unique ability that immerses it into its environment, showcasing just how this Arctic predator would use its adaptations to its advantage. As we mentioned before, the Remorhaz can turn its heated body ability on and off at will, so we can assume that after an initial blast of mist from the Remorhaz diving into the thick snowdrifts, it would leave its scales in a cool state, so not to give away its position until it's ready to burst forth once more. As a DM, you can also run this ability quite nicely using the Remorhaz's tremor sense. This allows the frolicking furnace to track its prey's movements, even while buried under the snow and ice. A perceptive party may notice this, which will give them a chance to predict the creature's movements, allowing them to use strategy to work around this attack, potentially turning it from downright dangerous to potentially advantageous. But yes, we did go off on a slight tangent there, which I hope you enjoyed, but anyway, let's get back to the point at hand, which was, yes, getting eaten alive by a Remorhaz. Now, getting swallowed, of course, is completely unadvisable, and a swallowed creature is treated to a barrage of acid damage, as well as the restrained and blinded conditions. Escape is possible, but it does require the swallowed creature to dish out a decent amount of damage from within, which is not a simple task while restrained. To many, their truly monstrous appearance is more than enough to send would-be hunters running for the hills, but there are groups that willingly seek out Remorhaz, and that group would just so happen to be the Frost Giants. Frost Giants are especially fond of Remorhaz, and will actively look for the creatures, hunting down their eggs, which they then steal away, returning them to their own dwellings, where experienced handlers prepare them for hatching. Upon their emergence, the young Remorhaz are malleable, and will react incredibly positively to those who bring them food. Using this training technique, Frost Giant tamers are able to mould the creatures into a form of extremely lethal insectoid guard dog, and these Remorhaz do in fact bond with their handlers, following and taking commands from them. Believe it or not, properly trained and bonded Remorhaz make for extremely loyal companions, although due to their sheer size and requirements, only Frost Giants are known to have been able to successfully tame them, and there are no mentions of any successfully implemented captive breeding programs, meaning that every time a Frost Giant wants to go out and get a Remorhaz guard dog, a nest raid is required. And of course, the Remorhaz don't give up their offspring easily, and this will often lead to fights to the death, with casualties happening on both sides. And of course, with this being Dungeons & Dragons, it would be a shame not to include some homebrew here and there. But with all of this said, you don't have to limit your Remorhaz to the frozen wastes of your world. Homebrewing is a wonderful thing, and with practically every creature, it's possible to reskin or create a variant that fits your world-building needs. The Remorhaz, for example, could be switched up into a desert or magma plane dwelling creature, retaining its fire and cold immunities, but reflavouring the monstrosity to have the ability to generate extreme cold, allowing them to stay cool in the baking desert sun or within the inhospitable flames of an active volcano. Just switch up any elemental damage it does from fire to cold, and you've got yourself a regional variant that your party will, I'm sure, be delighted to stumble across. Some additional places that you could find the more traditional cold-dwelling Remorhaz could be a Frost Giant's lair, which several have been tasked with guarding. You could encounter them while attempting to stop a Frost Giant party from stealing away the eggs, only to realise all too late that you've been set up by your opponents, who trap your party within a Remorhaz lair, convinced that the icy tyrants will see to your demise, leaving you with the options to sneak through the drifts and tunnels, or battle your way through. Or perhaps your party encounter an asteroid drifting through the astral sea, icebound and frigid, but with the promise of treasure hidden somewhere on the surface. Upon landing on the rock, you are greeted by a Remorhaz which is under the instruction of a wizard to destroy all who set foot on his domain, leaving you face to face with an extremely angry and very large bug. However you encounter them, Remorhaz are an exciting foe with lots of flavour to work with. Just be sure to keep your ears listening out for the sounds of hundreds of tiny scritches coming from beneath the snow. Hello everyone, Ben here, and thank you very much for watching this feature highlighting the creeping Remorhaz. If you like this one, then please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And why not stick around and check out another feature? Or perhaps you'd like to delve into the Dungeons & Death Battles Face-Off series, in which we search for the most lethal monster in all of Dungeons & Dragons through good old-fashioned tabletop dice combat.